All their contact information will be on their slides. As we go, all the questions for each speaker will be done at the end of them, each one of the speakers' sessions. To start the night, we have Allison Strickland. She's going to be speaking on behalf of Georgia Department of Agriculture. After her, it's Mr. Kurt Keeley and Miss Lauren Hatcher. And then to close us out this evening, it's Miss Beth Meeks with Georgia Grown. We did not have the ability, if y'all got my message earlier, the farmer that was going to speak, he had a personal issue came up, so he would not be able to be with us tonight. But from what I hear from Scout, he's a real heck of a guy, and he would have given us some real good, funny stories and some good motivation about his business as a whole. So we did miss out on him, but maybe in the future, if we ever do another one of these, we can't get him again, and that'd be a good thing to share with y'all. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Miss Allison, and she's going to get us started tonight. All right, Miss Allison, you're good to go.
Okay. All right, are we good? Everybody can see? Okay. Like Blake said, I'm Allison Strickland with the Georgia Department of Agriculture Food Safety section. Of course, there's numerous sections within our department, so I'm only speaking today on behalf of the food safety section. As you see, my telephone number is on this first slide, as well as my email address. And a lot of what I'm going over today are just basic guidelines. I'll try to get as specific as I can, but we have 30 minutes. So I'm trying to get as specific as I can, and Blake had already sent me a few questions that y'all might have sent in earlier, so I'm hoping that in my slideshow I will cover some of those questions. But each case is very, different, even though you might think you're so similar to another operation, but I would suggest reaching out to me or somebody within our department individually, and we'll be glad to get you the exact information you need for what you are wanting to do. But hopefully I'll give you a good overview today to at least lead you in the right direction and give you some guidelines as to what certain licenses require. Let's see, pull it head forward. Now, okay, here we go. Sorry, I wasn't able to proceed like I thought I could. Okay, so within our food safety program, we have numerous separate sections. So we have a dairy section. We have a section that covers bottled water, shellfish, of course, grocery stores, manufacturing plants, and we also have our newest section called produce safety. So that is all covered within the food safety program of the Department of Agriculture. So we are not the only agency that regulates food. So there are cases where you might call us and you might think you would need to fall under our department, but we might actually have to send you in a different direction. So I'm going to briefly kind of go through what each of these regulatory authorities do. So maybe that'll help better explain to you maybe where you fit depending on what you're wanting to do. Of course, I'm going to get into pretty good detail what our section does with food safety, but DPH is your local health department. They typically cover food service establishments or places that produce food for on-site consumption. So those foods are usually like hot plates or, ice cream in an ice cream cone that you're going to eat while you're at the facility or the event. FDA is in charge of foods that cross state lines that don't involve meats. So that's typically there. And again, this is very brief. What I'm telling you, that's not all they do. But as far as food goes, that's when they typically get involved. And USDA are federal partners that deal with foods that cross state lines that do involve meats, typically. And then we have the Department of Natural Resources, who also help us in our shellfish program, as well as like deer processing and other areas as well. So our Georgia Department of Agriculture Food Safety Division, we have rules and regulations in place to govern or regulate retail or wholesale food manufacturers. These include seafood markets, bakeries, convenience stores, dollar stores. I mean, anything that sells like packaged foods, especially. Each firm is required to have a license from our department, and our regulations are typically based off of what our federal partners suggest to us. So, like in retail, and I'm going to explain to you the difference of the food safety division when it comes to retail versus manufactured foods, but our retail regulations are based on the FDA food code, and we recently adopted the 2013 version. And our manufactured food side, they typically have their regulations based off the Code of Federal Regulations, which is another set of guidelines that FDA gives each state. So with manufactured foods, sometimes you're required to have mandatory finished product testing and sometimes not. So as far as our department in the food safety section, we have two types of licenses. No matter, even if you fall to retail or manufactured foods, there's two types of licenses. One is called a cottage food establishment. We're going to go into detail on both of these types of licenses. But the cottage food establishment license is becoming a lot more popular. It's one of our newer licenses. And this is the only license that we have with our department that you can actually get from your home, because typically you have to have a separate facility. So the cottage food permit is for your house. A food sales establishment is anything outside of your house, whether it be a mobile unit, a wholesale fish dealer, shellfish processor, or a manufactured food facility, as well as just a retail store setting and that sort of thing. Our licenses typically cost between $100 and $300. And that is based on what risk, like the higher the risk of the product or the more in depth your process is, typically your license is more expensive. The more simplified your process is, typically your license is cheaper. So for the most part in my section, licenses typically run from $100 to $200. That's usually the most common fees. Like the bigger manufacturers, are the ones that are typically paying $300. So I'm going to talk a little more in depth about the cottage food permit. Like I said, this is our newest license within my section of my department. And Commissioner Black was influential in getting this started, and it started back in 2012. He wanted a way for people to be able to bring more items to like farmers markets and things to sell, because before this came out, unless you had a regular license from us, which meant you had to have a commercial kitchen, you were not able to sell your products at farmers markets. So this allowed a little more leeway with certain types of items, but it is limited, and we're going to get into that. So like I said, the cottage food regulations is our license that allows you to produce non-potentially hazardous foods in your home kitchen. Okay, and a non-potentially hazardous food is typically one that does not require refrigeration or has no big foodborne illness outbreak or that sort of thing associated with it. So we do have a website, and you can go to a link that has information about our cottage food license under the food safety section on our website. But also we have a brochure about starting a cottage food business that has very basic information. And then also like a question and answer document. And those I'm going to be sending to Blake so that he can also have access to those. I know he has all of everybody's email addresses, so we can get those out to you really easy. Okay, so what can even be made under a cottage food permit? So these are only foods that, like I said, do not require refrigeration. So like breads, cakes, cookies, jams or jellies, dried fruits, seasonings, anything that, and nothing that has meat in it, because obviously meats have to be refrigerated. So anything, I shouldn't say anything, but most foods that don't require refrigeration or any sort of special process. So as far as what cannot be made, and again, these are just brief little lists to kind of give you an idea of what can be made and can't, but canned vegetables, any meat items, dairy products, sauces, barbecue sauces, sprouts, and garlic and oil mixtures cannot be made under this license. And again, those have to do, the reason for that is they're a more dangerous food. I know maybe some people are like, what? That's not dangerous, but they are. They've been associated with some foodborne illness outbreaks, or that process, if you don't do it correctly, can make somebody very sick. So it wasn't just like they went and pick and chose what they felt like letting you make or sell on the permit. There is, you know, some background to that item of why you can't make it under a cottage food. So where can this product be made? It has to be in your everyday kitchen that you feed your family out of. I have a lot of people that contact me. They have like a storage shed out back and they've converted it into like a little commercial kitchen. I know it sounds crazy, but a cottage food permit cannot be issued in a separate kitchen like that, even if it's at your residence. So this license is only for the kitchen that you use every day. You can't have any commercial equipment in that kitchen. And the rationale behind that is if you're getting big enough to where you need commercial size equipment, then typically you need to be in a bigger place and, you know, get our food sales establishment license at that point. So the products can only be sold at like farmers markets, flea markets, maybe special events, things of that nature, but it's places that you're selling to the end consumer. So the products you make in our cottage food permit cannot be made and maybe sold to your local convenience store down the street where they're going to put it on their shelf and sell it further. That's considered a wholesale transaction. It can't be sold to your friend's restaurant where they're going to serve it maybe as a dessert on their menu, because that, again, is a wholesale transaction. So these licenses only allow you to sell these products actually to the end consumer and not like a wholesale transaction. So there are requirements for the label. I know this was somebody's question, I think, that was sent in. So I have a slide on this type of license labeling and also our regular food sales establishment license labeling as well. So for a cottage food product, you have to have the common name of the product, which is like if it's grape jelly, you say it's grape jelly, just the common name of the food. You have to have a list of the ingredients, including allergens, and the ingredients need to be listed in order of predominance, meaning like whatever, like if flour is the biggest ingredient in your product, then that should be listed first. And then it goes, you know, down to the least ingredient in your product. You have to have a declaration of responsibility, and that's if we have any problems with your product, we need to know who they got it from. But also this is good for you as a business, because if they like your product and they want more, then obviously they're going to have a way to reach out to you or tell their friend that this is, you know, who made the product. So it kind of works both ways. It's good for us, but good for y'all too. And then you have to have a statement stating how much is in the container. So how much are you selling? And the most important thing that's really different with Cottage Foods versus our other licenses is it is required to have our Cottage Food statement on there, which states that the product was made in a facility that's not subject to state inspection. So how do you get a license for this? So you would need to check first with your local city and county ordinances to make sure you can even get a cottage food permit in your home. Because we have run into that a few times where, especially with like apartments and whatnot, you might not be allowed to have a permit in your house. So you need to check there first to make sure like the zoning and whatnot allows you to have it. And then you do have to pass a food safety course. And that ANSI that's listed on my slide, that's just like the certification that the class has to be certified by in order for it to meet our requirements. So there are like 5 or 6 different brands of classes. The most common one around here typically is called ServSafe. Again, there's different brands. I'm not telling you have to get ServSafe because you can pick any of the brands. But for this license, one thing to remember is you only have to have the employee handler level class. There are usually 2 with each company. There's an employee level class and a management level class. So one big difference with cottage food license versus our other license is this only has to be the food handler permit, which is a little bit easier to get. It's a shorter test, shorter class. And sometimes those can be done online. So you obviously would have to fill out a cottage food application, and on that application there are boxes where you check the types of products that you're wanting to sell. So, you know, there's like cakes, breads, whatnot on there, and you would check the ones that apply to you. You would pay a $100 annual fee. And if you're on a private well, you would have to have your water tested, and we would have to have the results of that test with your application in order to proceed. One thing that's not listed on here is if you are on a septic tank as well, because a lot of people that are on well are also on septic. You would have to have a septic tank approval from your local county health department. Just saying that your septic tank is adequate to hold the waste and operating sufficiently. And usually your county health department is so familiar with doing these letters for us that if you call and say, this is what I need, they'll know exactly what you're talking about. So, or typically they do. So when will the department even inspect you when you're, you know, doing a cottage food? So you'll send in all your paperwork. You can send it to your local inspector or the office where your local inspector, you know, works out of, or you can send it through our Atlanta office. But once you send all of your paperwork in, they will let the inspector in your area know that you have, and that inspector will reach out to you concerning setting up an inspection. We only do a one-time inspection, and that is, you know, at your licensing, and then we typically don't come back unless we have a complaint or any reason to come back. Like if there's complaints where we're just having issues, or if we think that you're not selling what you're supposed to sell, then we might have to come back for an additional visit. But typically it's a one-time inspection, and then you just have to renew your license fee every year. That's $100. If you want to change anything about your license, if you move houses, if you want to change the products that you checked on your application, like let's say you wanted to do dry herbs, but now you want to do cakes, you would have to reapply and let us know to change that. One thing I was going to mention just briefly right now during the COVID-19 status that we're in, we have been doing cottage food inspections virtually. So that has been a big challenge for us. So now we have been doing them by FaceTime, or we might get you to send us pictures or videos. We try to work with you on whatever like software or equipment that you have to send it to us, but we've been doing those virtually right now. I don't know when and if we'll go back to in-person ones, but you know, you send in your paperwork, we talk to you on the phone, you send us videos, and that's how we've been doing licenses during this time frame. Why do you even want a cottage food inspection? Well, it's typically easier for people to comply with this type of license than our other type of license. The equipment requirements are not as much as far as, you know, what you have to install for us. And like I said, and even the food safety certificate that you have to get is just the employee handler one versus the management level one. But it also helps us because since we had tons of people that were selling illegally that we had no control over, and this kind of allows people an easier way to get a license to be legit and do it the right way and do it legally. So a lot of people like this license too, because if they want to start doing it and they want to see, hey, is it going to grow into something where I can have like a full-time, you know, bakery or a more substantial, you know, business or whatnot. This kind of lets you see how it's going to go before you put maybe too much into it. So now we're going to talk about our regular license, which is called a food sales establishment license. And this is for any place that retails or wholesales that, again, it would be something outside of your home. And these can be, you know, processing plants, bakeries, confectionaries. It can be places that sell whole fruits and vegetables, any type of stores. It can be somebody that supplies vending machines, you know, all kinds of stuff. But it's primarily packaged foods or foods, again, that are consumed off premises or you take home and you further process those products. So that's why it's stressed in bold on here that they're for primary consumption off premises. Because again, on-site consumption typically is food service and covered by your local county health department. So within the food safety section, there are two separate sections. And sometimes it is confusing on which section within the food safety section that you would fall to. So I'm going to try to explain that as easily as possible, and it does get a little gray. And again, my suggestion is if you're not sure, reach out to me, reach out to my office, whatnot, and we can help steer you in the right direction. But the retail food safety section is who I work for. And these are typically facilities that are only engaged in retail sale. So again, grocery stores, convenience stores, little retail bakeries, retail seafood markets, things of that nature. Now, you can still fall to my section and wholesale up to 40%. So if you're at 40% of your business or less is wholesaling, you would still fall to the retail food section. But you're primarily selling to the end consumer. Now, if you are engaged in mostly wholesale activities, or the majority of your business, over 40%, is selling to another store or another restaurant or facility like that that's going to further process or further sell your products, then you're going to fall to the manufactured food section. And the reason why that's important for you to know which section you're going to fall to is because we have two separate sets of regulations there. So there are a little bit different requirements for that depending on what you're doing. So this is a very brief list of what you would be required to do if you fell to the retail food safety side, the retail food section side of food safety, I should say. And again, you would have to have a certified food protection manager. That is that same food safety class that I discussed during the cottage food presentation. And during the cottage food license, again, you can have the employee handler permit, but for a regular food sales establishment, you would actually have to have the management level permit. And those classes, you typically can reach out to your extension agent, your local county health departments. There are private people in private industry that do teach the classes as well. Some technical colleges and whatnot also offer these classes. But I would suggest, like, if you were getting a cottage food permit, but you think you might one day move into a regular permit, like a food sales establishment license, I would suggest go ahead and take in the management level class because it's gonna be required of you anyway. As far as facility requirements, this obviously is a big difference between a cottage food permit and a regular food sales license. So your lights have to be shielded in your facility. Everything has to be smooth and easily cleanable, so no raw wood. It would need to be sealed or painted or covered. No cement that hasn't been sealed, things of that nature. And one of the biggest differences is, of course, for a cottage food inspection, you just have your household sink because it's in your everyday kitchen. But in these facilities, you're required to have a 3-compartment sink to wash dishes. You have to have hand sinks in all your prep areas or areas where you're washing dishes and possibly serving foods. So like you might have one hand sink, or you might be required to have 5 or 6 hand sinks, depending on how your facility is set up. You also are required to have a mop sink, and that's just for dumping out wastewater, and a restroom that's supplied. And again, even for these establishments, if they're on a private water system or septic tank, you would have to have that approved as well. This is just a continued list. Of course, you'd have to use safe food handling practices. For instance, no bare hand contact with ready-to-eat foods, wear a hair restraint, that sort of thing. If you were trying to start at like a meat market or a seafood market or anything like that, you would have to have, it's a pretty wet operation because of the equipment that has to be washed down and things of that nature. So you would have to have proper drainage, possibly floor drains and whatnot in your facility. Obviously, it's important to have adequate refrigeration and hot holding units, pest control measures. Your outside premises has to look good with no tall weeds, no unused equipment and stuff like that. And again, you would need to check with your local city or county to make sure you can even have a business in that area, or that your facility even meets local city or county codes as far as plumbing and whatnot goes. And with this license, again, like I mentioned earlier, you would also have to have proper labeling on your products. So my next slide goes into a little bit of detail of that, on those requirements, excuse me. So if you're licensed with a food sales establishment license, this is a brief summary of what's required to be on the license. A lot of it is the same as a cottage food permit, as far as the common name of your food, the contents of the package, a list of the ingredients that are, have to be in order of predominance, the name and address of your facility. Most places can get away with not having nutrition facts on their labeling, but that depends on the size of your business. So if you're a larger company, you would be required to have nutrition facts on your products. And then also allergens have to be listed on there as well. But there is no, under the cottage food permit, I told you there was a statement that has to be on your labels. There's no particular statement that has to be on these labels because you are under inspection. So there's no statement our department requires. So as far as if you're a new business or you would like to seek out, one of these types of licenses, you would need to, you could either, again, reach out to an inspector, a local office, or go through Atlanta Licensing Division. You have to fill out an application, have to fill out an affidavit, send in a copy of your driver's license and whatnot. That just proves that you have citizenship and you're able to have a business in the state of Georgia. And then you would have to send a documentation. It's like a business plan, that's what we call it. And it just says what it is you want to sell or do. And it specifically mentions on there a question about how much you'll be wholesaling versus retailing. And the reason for that is what I mentioned earlier, to determine which section of our food safety division you would actually fall to. I don't think anybody on here already has a license, but if you already had a license but you wanted to change what you were doing or you wanted to move to a different facility, our licenses are not transferable, so you would have to start over and request a new license. As far as if you moved to a new facility, if you wanted to make something different, you still would need to reach out to us so that we could update your license to reflect what it is that you're wanting to do now. Just briefly, other things we do within our program, like once you had a license from our department, of a regular food sales establishment license, the slide says we come by once every 6 to 18 months, and that's typically the normal amount, is anywhere from 6 to 18 months. And again, that depends on the risk of your product, how big your operation is, if you're wholesaling versus retailing, that sort of thing. That affects how often we actually come to do your inspections. And that sometimes during those inspections, we might have to collect samples that we send to our food lab to have tested. And we do have to work consumer complaints, or if a company sends off their own sample and let's say something comes back wrong with it, we do have to go follow up on those, or foodborne illness outbreaks. We also conduct label reviews. So if you have a license and you started out, let's say, with one product and you decide to add a product to your product line, before you spend a bunch of money having labels printed, you could send in an example label and we could look at it for you and make sure it meets the requirements before you get too much money into it and that not be right. We also respond to disasters. If you have a fire or flood, or if a tornado comes through and affects your business, our inspectors have to respond to those locations. As far as once you have a license, what to expect during your inspection, we're very strong about, we teach our new inspectors that we educate as we regulate, because if we educate you better on like why we're requiring something or what the requirements are, then our stores can better, comply with those regulations. So a lot of what we do while we're in the facility is educate you on what needs to be done. It works out better for both parties involved. We do typically for these have unannounced inspections. Now for your cottage food license, it's at your home. So typically when we are back to doing in-person inspections, we would call you and set up a time for us to meet. Because you have to be there, obviously, for us to do the inspection, and it's at your house, so it's not like it's open for business all the time. So, but for a regular food sales establishment license, those typically are unannounced visits. During that visit, we of course would introduce ourselves, tell you what we're there for. We meet with the person in charge. Again, discuss violations, discuss regulations, collect any samples we need at that time, and leave you a copy of an inspection report so you know exactly what you need to do. So that was a very brief run through of our licenses and requirements. I hope I answered most of your questions that were submitted. But again, it's really better on a case-by-case basis to reach out to us because a little difference, like something that seems little to you, can make a big difference on like what regulations you would fall under and the license that would be required for you. So even if you reach out to us to ask us a question, I mean, that doesn't mean you have to get a license. So if you just, if you're just thinking about getting a license, my suggestion would be to reach out to one of us and let us try to answer those questions. Also, we do recommend you sending in plans as far as your building goes so that we can, before you spend money on, let's say, putting something in or if it's in the wrong place, if you'd reach out to us and let us review your plan, a lot of times we can save you some money because then you won't have to change something you just did or anything like that. So we also recommend sending in those with your application so that we can better help you. So that's all I have.
All right, Allison, that was great. I know I learned a good bit. I jotted down a good bit of notes. Those are a lot of the questions that I got asked from some local clients here in Liberty County. So I know it goes to show that there's probably other people that had some of the same questions. I will start with the questions in the chat box. We do have a few, and I also have a few that I wrote down. So the first one is how about fermented foods or pickled foods? So does that fall under having to have a cottage food license or?
You cannot do that under a cottage food permit because that is a little more dangerous operation. I know, for you to do it for your personal use is a different story than serving it to the public. Typically, people who are doing fermentation or any of those foods, a lot of times they will be wholesaling. So typically that falls to our manufactured foods section, usually, just because typically those people retail and wholesale, but primarily wholesale. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times with that, we would need you to have your process approved, or, in other words, you're going to have to know the pH of your product and things of that nature. So your county extension agent can really help you with that and send you, maybe to UGA as far as having your product classified and whatnot. But typically those tend to fall to manufactured foods, but you definitely cannot do them under cottage food license.
Okay. Can you sell like some of those fermented foods at farmers markets, or is farmers markets kind of like they require you to have the cottage food, or can you be out there without that, or is it kind of a farmers market base-to-base kind of thing?
Yeah, you can't sell those to the public at all without a permit from us. Now, under farmers markets, we do have guidelines, and if it's a city or county sponsored farmers market, we don't make you have a permit to sell certain items, okay? Now that item in particular, you would still not be able to sell. But let's say if you just wanted to make a loaf of bread and take it to the farmer's market, if it's a city or county sponsored event, then typically from us, you don't have to have a cottage food permit, but what's happening is that farmer's market and the organizer of that event is liable for anything that you have at that event. So they're typically requiring you to have some form of license for liability reasons.
That makes sense. So the next question in here says, do we need to use a specific company for well testing, or do y'all have a preference for who they use to do their well testing? I know we do private well testings. I did one for someone that wanted to get a cottage food, so I didn't know if y'all had like 2 different places y'all like it from, or.
Right. So that is a very good question, and actually it recently changed about a month ago. So we used to collect water samples. If you had a food sales establishment license and you needed a water sample, our department collected it for you for free, and that was just part of our inspection process. Now, with the cottage food permit, our department would collect them for you, but at that point they were $100. And a lot of people didn't use us at that point because you can typically find a water sample cheaper than $100 through your extension agent, through your local county health department. So we weren't pulling a lot of water samples for Cottage Foods because I hate to say it, but we cost more at the time. So people went other avenues with that. But as of right now, we have stopped collecting water samples. So even if you have a food sales establishment license, we don't collect the water sample for you anymore. We have some guidelines of accreditations that the labs need to meet, but typically your extension agency, your local county health department meets that criteria. So that's, most people are going that route. Now I have like a company that I inspect that they have a bunch of stores, and they have a bunch of stores on private well, and it's easier for them to get a private well, water testing company to come check all of theirs at one time and just, so it's going to probably depend on what's easier and most cost effective for the particular company, but typically people are using the extension service or county health department.
All right, thank you for that. The next question here is, has to have a label with all the required. So basically every cookie or jar or bundle that you're selling at your stand, does it have to have labeling information, or can it just be like one or two that have the label and information and it be like the front and you just sell like ones that don't have the label or something like that, or do they all have to be?
If it's in a package, it's supposed to have the label on every package. Now, if you're making a cake, let's say, and you're putting it in a cake box, and you don't sell the same flavor cake that goes in the box every time, and that was something like a cake somebody ordered from you, we have had people in that case, maybe provide it on like a sheet of paper when they made their sale. But if you're at a farmer's market and you have packages of cookies, or let's say pecan pralines or something, and it's in little individual packages, you should have each package labeled.
Okay. So even if it's just one single cookie, each cookie needs to have your label, some form of labeling on it.
It does. Okay. And that's also for liability reasons, again, because, let's say if I'm allergic to eggs and I'm just making an assumption that what you're selling me doesn't have egg in it because it never normally has egg in it, but your recipe just happens to have egg in it. Then, if that person went home and consumed it and it wasn't labeled properly, you could be liable for that.
Okay. The next question, it looks like it got answered in the chat, but it was, how long does the ServSafe class license actually is valid for? They said it was 5 years. Can you confirm that it's 5 years?
Yeah. They're usually, most all of them are good for about 5 or 6 years, like typically around 5 years. And like I said, there's different brands, but they're all typically about, the same expiration.
Okay. Now this next question here on the chat box, it's more of a specific question, but I know it kind of relates to a few different areas other than just beef. I know there was a few people that had goats in mind and things like that. So they said, what about beef sales from your farm? So what kind of licensing do you have to sell meat from your farm?
Okay. Yeah, and that's a complicated question. So we have a meat inspection division that is also part of our department. And so any meat that's processed for further sale, so if like you have a cow that you want to take and have processed, and that you're going to further sell that meat, you would have to take it to certain facilities that are licensed by our meat inspection division and have the proper licensing where they can process that and further sell it. And it has to be labeled appropriately. So some places where you take your own meat and have it processed, the packaging will say not for further sale. Obviously that you could not sell. So, and it depends on the licensing of the facility where you're taking your meat. But sometimes my section will also step in after the processing process of that, because like, for instance, just throwing an example, we have some people that do that. They have the meat processed and they put it on a mobile unit, and they might want to go door to door or whatnot and sell it. So if you're doing that, then your mobile unit would then require a license from my section, food safety. So not only would the facility you're having it processed at have a license from our meat inspection, and it could possibly be USDA, but it would have to come from an approved facility like that. And then depending on where, like if you took it back to a fixed location and you stored it in freezers and people came to that location to buy it, then that location would also have to be licensed. So I've seen it both ways, where people sell it from a fixed location and some people sell it from a mobile unit. Wherever you're storing and selling that product would have to be licensed, depending on if it's mobile or fixed.
Okay.
I don't know if I answered the question exactly, but
I can't speak for Mr. Phillip that asked it, but I definitely learned some stuff about that one, because I've been asked that too, and I didn't really have an idea of who to point them in the right direction to.
right.
I appreciate you for that one. Kind of piggybacking off that question, this is the last one I have. It's kind of weird, but I've seen it, and I wanted to ask. So, if say like a cattle operation wanted to do not just selling meat, had to be refrigerated, but they were selling maybe like dried rawhide for like dog treats, or anybody that wants to do dog treats or dog edible food treats or whatever, baked or whatnot. What do they need? Do they need a cottage food license if they're baking it in their house, or is there like a
Cottage food permits are only for products for human consumption. So any animal feed type cases would have to be referred to like our pet protection section and that the animal side of our department. We only regulate foods for human consumption, so not pets.
Okay, I was curious since if you did like the drying or whatever in a kitchen or something like
Right.
that, or baking the dog treat, dog biscuits. I didn't know if that kind of correlated or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure. To be honest, I'm not sure if they allow you to do that in your house or not. It just wouldn't fall in our cottage food because it's not human consumption. So.
Okay. All right. Well, that wraps up all the questions that we have right now. I know if anybody else has any specifics, they can always contact you if they need to, or your department. This was some great information, and I'll definitely get that little sheet from you and send it out to everybody. I think everybody would really benefit from it. I know I'm going to keep a few in my office.
Okay. Yeah, and one of the sheets I'm sending has like a little map on the back, and it has the locations of our district offices. We have 3 within the state of Georgia. We have a North Georgia office, which is in Gainesville. We have a Metro office, which is at our Atlanta Farmers Market. And then the whole South is covered from our office in Tifton. So it kind of has a map on there, and also the office numbers you could kind of look on the map and what county you're located in and know kind of which office to contact. And again, I would say if you're not sure, contact us anyway, because we can send you in the right direction, or we might say that didn't fall to us, but this is what fall. It's better to contact us when in doubt than to not contact us at all. And that way too, before you do anything where it costs you money, or that's the last thing you want to do is go in the hole more when you didn't have to. So contact us and we'll be glad to send you in the right direction. And again, that doesn't mean that even if you're just thinking about getting a license, but you don't know for sure if you want one, reach out to us, because we don't hold you to it and you have to get a license. We can talk about it and you can decide if you want to pursue it or not. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Miss Allison.
Thank you.
Did it. And now we're going to shift gears a little bit, Mr. Kirk. We're going to shift it over to you with FoodPIC. I know y'all got a good presentation to share as well, you and Lauren. So I'm going to make you the host, Mr. Kirk, and I'll let you take it away. All right, good to go.
We're good?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Where'd it go? Can you see the slides?
Yes, sir.
Great. Well, thank you, Blake, for the opportunity to talk to the group about FoodPIC. FoodPIC is a short version of the Food Product Innovation and Commercialization Center. And tonight, I'm going to take you through some of the things that we do, and our program manager, Lauren Hatcher, will join me as well, and hopefully we'll give you some good information. You've already learned about marketing and sales now and licensing, and now you're going to get to the real centerpiece of the table, the product, the food that you're going to try to sell. So let me see if I can move this forward. There are lots of extension capabilities and resources available, especially at the personal level. If you're trying to preserve food, if you're looking for nutrition and health, there's even food science and manufacturing, commercial and home food safety. All of these are great, but what we're here tonight to talk about is agribusiness. So we really want to focus on how do we get your products to market. And what I've got here is an example of what I would consider a very simple roadmap that you could think about as you go from your idea all the way to market, and then how do you expand your market. So if you look at this slide on the left, what I highly recommend, if you haven't done this yet, is to take a short workshop with UGA, Department of Food Science and Technology, and it's called Starting a New Food Business. And they happen usually in the fall. It's a day and a half. It's not very expensive. And what happens there is it's a little bit like this program tonight. Folks from the GDA are there, the FDA, other entrepreneurs are there, and you have a chance to share your war stories and figure out how to get things done. You form an informal network of folks who are making other products, and it's a great way to get started. Some people are surprised at how difficult it is to go to market, and it's a good thing to know early on. If you don't think you want to do it, or if you're on the fence, this can convince you to go yes or no. So I highly recommend that as a place to start. And once you have your product and your product idea, if you need help making the product safe, stable, or legal, that's where FoodPIC comes in, and that's our brochure. And what I'll do after our workshop tonight is I'll send a copy of this brochure to Blake so he can then forward it to everyone that's on the call tonight. And then once you have your product and you go to market, the third leg of the journey, where I think you should think about, is another resource at University of Georgia, and that's the Flavor of Georgia contest. So you've got your product, you now want to go up and you want to compete with other products in the same category. Even if you don't win a prize, you get to show your product to a lot of distributors and retailers, and it's a great way to expand your market beyond networking. So this is what I would consider the map, the treasure map of how to make your products successful, especially in the state of Georgia. So what about that middle brochure? What is FoodPIC? Well, our vision is really to help impact public service, to drive the economic growth of Georgia, the Southeast, and beyond. We like to develop and drive innovations in the area of food and beverages. We do human foods, we do pet foods, we've done insects, we've done jellyfish. So you name it, we've probably worked on it. We want to create the future of the food industry. And of course, we want to deliver national and international recognition to UGA. But at the end of the day, that's the name on the door. What's our mission? We're here to help with the infrastructure that you need to develop your business. So we have human capital, we have technical expertise and leadership, we have the physical facilities to make products, and we have state-of-the-art equipment. We believe that if you're going to go into business, you don't want to use technology from the turn of the century in the 1800s. We think you should make yourself as competitive as possible and use the technologies available today. Specifically under expertise, we have on staff a lot of knowledge and experience with developing new food products. We can also help you evaluate and specify those raw materials you need, because as you know, garbage in is garbage out. So you really want to have really good raw materials to have the best possible product when you convert them into products that you want to sell. We can help with food micro and food safety. We can help on the processing and the packaging of the product. And then if you really want to go high end and you have the resources, You might want to do some formal sensory testing and consumer testing. This is what large companies do to find out whether or not they have a viable business. I'll tell you a little story about myself. I used to work at Pepsi, and I had this one project to develop a competitive product to Dr. Pepper. So I worked on it for weeks. I came up with a great product. Everyone in New York loved it. And they said, let's go to market. And I said, well, wait a minute. If we're going to go compete against Dr. Pepper, we really should test it beforehand with consumers that are heavy users of Dr. Pepper. So they agreed. We had to test. We go to Dallas. We set up the blind test. And at the end of the testing, every heavy user of Dr. Pepper found out that my product was the fake. It was not as good as Dr. Pepper. So we had to rethink our whole positioning, and we had to do some other things. So if you are going to go and make a big bet on a product, you might want to do some consumer testing. Shelf life evaluation is important. If you want to go into the big markets, the big box or the retail chain, they're going to ask you, how long does your product last? We can do that for you. We can help you figure out how long your product lasts, and perhaps we can help you even extend it through processing or packaging. We do scale up. We help with commercialization, and you're going to hear from Lauren in a bit. She's our nutrition facts person. She does nutrition facts panels in her sleep. I think she's done over 250 in the last 3 years. So if you have a question about nutrition facts panels, you want to start filling up that chat box now. This is just to show you what kind of capabilities we have here at FoodPIC. Our building is on the left. It's new. It opened in January of 2017. Inside this building, we have 3 large pilot plants where we're capable of making just about any food or beverage you can think of. That middle piece is a piece of equipment that does high temperature, short time pasteurization of beverages. So we can make long shelf life milk, juices, nut milks, you name it. And then on the right, it's a spray dryer, where if you have a juice and you want to make a juice powder, that's the equipment that you need to do that. Why is that important? Well, juice has a certain shelf life because it's high moisture. If you take the moisture out of the juice and just collect the juice powder, now you've got a sample, you've got a product that you can use for anywhere from 12 to 18 months and have a lot of the nutrition and the benefits of the juice itself. So let's keep going here. This is kind of a dull slide. It shows 3 big boxes, but it represents the 3 pilot plants that we have. I have to say that if you really want to see some great equipment, Lauren has been working on this virtual tour that's just about ready for prime time. And she actually walks through and you can see all these different pieces of equipment. Guys love it. Women aren't as nearly as excited about it as some of the guys, but it's a lot of fun. And we can set you up to see the tour if you'd like to take that. What I want to talk about is my area of interest and passion, and that's converting raw materials into food products. And the examples I want to use are some of the major crops of Georgia. Upper left, you see the blueberries. On the lower left, you see the fuyu fruit. On the lower right, we have the satsumas, the new citrus products in Georgia. Above that, the flower is hibiscus flower. And then right in the middle is the pomegranate. These are all fairly important commodities in the state of Georgia. And right now, as a state, we are well positioned to sell fresh fruit. As a food scientist, I think that's short-sighted. I really think we need to have some processing in place in order to take these products, add some value to them, give us products that have longer shelf life, and products that we can sell out of season. So that's my bias, and I want to just say that up front so you wouldn't be too annoyed with me as I go on to talk about this. If you're going to develop a food product, you've got to do some thinking. You really got to decide, what are you going to do? If you're going to move beyond fresh fruit, which way do I want to go? Do I want to make it sweet, or do I want to make it savory? When I think of sweet, the first thing out of the box is if you take the fruit and you squeeze it, you have a juice. If you take that juice and you ferment it, you have a wine. If you take that wine and ferment it, you have a vinegar. Those are all fairly common liquid beverage type foods starting from fruit. If you go the other way, you want to make fruit solid, you can add sugar and make jams and jellies. You can mash it and add salt and maybe make some sauces or spreads. You got to figure out where you want to go, what you're going to make, and who's going to be your competition. These are all good questions that you want to have up front answered so you can define your target, what's your food going to be. Is it a beverage or a food? How are you going to store it? How are you going to sell it? Is it shelf stable, meaning you can put it in a jar and leave it on the shelf and it won't change over 6, 8, 12 months? Or are you going to refrigerate it? Chances are then it's going to be perishable and it's not going to last that long in the refrigerator, maybe a couple of weeks, maybe 6, maybe 8 weeks. Or are you going to freeze it? Freezing is great. It's one way to keep products intact for a long period of time. However, there's a cost associated with keeping something frozen. So you've got to think about that as well. Allison talked about it a little bit earlier, the importance of acidity in the food. Is it a low acid or a high acid food? That too will impact whether or not it can be sold in certain establishments or how it needs to be preserved. What's your package? What's the package doing for you? Is it generic, something you bought off of Uline? Or is it high end to make your product look pretty fancy and sort of increase the expectations of the consumer? Is the package something for show, or does it have a function to protect your product? These are the trade-offs. These are the decisions you have to make. How about how you're going to make it? What's the equipment? Some of our clients that come to FoodPIC are so tired of having to make their product by hand. When we show them some simple equipment to make their lives easier, they bow down on their knees and praise that we came to to save them. That's how important sometimes going from handmade to using machines to help can be. Shelf life, mode of failure, how does your product die? If we can figure out how your product dies, we can probably figure out what you could do to make it last longer. And that's one of the things we do here at FoodPIC. But the last question, probably the most important question, why should I buy your new product over my current favorite? What is unique about your product? What's going to make it jump off the shelf? We had one client send us some of their cookies, and we tried them, and they asked our comments, and we were very clear that the cookies were fine, but they were kind of not very special. And the client said, well, gosh, we've been giving away these cookies to our families for years, and we've never had any negative feedback. And my first question was, how much did you charge your family members? If I'm getting a free cookie, I'll be the last person to turn it down. I would not say anything negative about a cookie. A cookie is a cookie. This is a slide to show you how you can think about new products and how you can transform raw materials into different products. When I first got to Georgia 5 years ago, I was introduced to blueberries. And I thought blueberries were okay, but I thought blueberries had a texture issue. I didn't like chewing on that tough skin. It just didn't work for me. So one of the projects we took on, early days, working with the Georgia Blueberry Association, was trying to identify what could we do to change the texture of blueberry to give us different sensory experiences. And you can see some of them on the slide here. We made crunch balls, we made roll-ups, we made paper, we made bacon, and we made leather. All these had different textures. Some were crunchy, some were chewy, some were wet. These are the kinds of things you can think about as you start to develop your own product. We also go to the Savannah Fruit and Veg Conference every year. And at our booth, we try to innovate new products to get people thinking about what they can do with their fruits and vegetables. On the left there is a carbonation unit. So one year, we took carbonated peach yogurt. We wanted to take yogurt made with Georgia peaches, but carbonated to give it a different mouthfeel and have it as a beverage. It was very exciting. One year, we took our chocolate making machine and just had it there to to show the consumers how the chocolate is made, and the aroma would bring people to our booth, and that was very effective. Then the next year, we made white chocolate with dried fruit bits, pomegranate and blueberry and satsuma, and we made them in the shape of the UGA dog print and the UGA dog bone. We had a fatal error. We left the products on a tray, and people would walk by and look and keep walking by. That's not what you want to have at a booth. You want people to grab things so that you can barely keep the tray filled with samples. So we asked, well, what's going on? How come you're not trying one of our samples? And the feedback was, that's a dog treat. That's not human food. So we learned our lesson. So the next year, what do? We took the same products back to Savannah, but this time we wrapped every individual piece in gold foil. Do you know how come Godiva can sell chocolate for $25 a pound? It's all in the gold foil. It's not in the product. So packaging can be very important. I wanted to give you an example of how an entrepreneur back in the 1920s figured out how he could compete with his supplier. If your supplier is making chocolate and selling chocolate bars for a nickel, how can you buy chocolate from that same supplier and make money? The answer is you want to be able to sell air, water, or wood. Those are the cheapest ingredients. So this sample on the left, imagine that's a chocolate bar, and the white is the chocolate coating, and the middle of that bar is a nougat. If you know nougat is soft because it's full of air. And what this entrepreneur did was say, look, I'll buy chocolate, but I will fill the chocolate with something cheap, in this case nougat, and sell it at a nickel, and I'll make money. The other product in the middle is the same idea, but here the nougat is on the bottom and there's a layer of caramel on the top. Caramel is made with milk, butter, and sugar. All those ingredients are cheaper than chocolate. Again, a filled chocolate bar. He could be competitive. He could still have someone make his chocolate and still make some money. The third execution, the same format, a filled bar, has got the nougat on the bottom, the caramel on the top, with pieces of peanut. Do you recognize the three products? So on the left, in 1932, was a Three Musketeer bar. And 5 years ago, in 2015, it was selling for over $100 million a year. The first bar that came out was the Milky Way bar in the middle. Milky Way has nougat on the top, nougat on the bottom and caramel on the top. And it was introduced in 1923. And last 5 years ago, it sold 70 million of that. The product on the right is the Snickers bar. It's a huge success for the Mars company. And the peanut gives it a crunch, gives it a texture. And in many cases, it's considered to be a very popular product with young men and male teens, whereas the Three Musketeer bar is light and airy and tends to be more for the women. So let me show you how that fits into the top 10 selling chocolate products in the US. Counting down from number 10 is Almond Joy. Milky Way we just talked about is number 9. Hershey's Cookies and Cream is number 8. That's unique on the top 10 list because that's the newest addition to this list. It came out in the, I think the 80s. It has white chocolate. Number 7 is the Three Musketeer bar, and then number 6 is Twix. In this list, number 9, number 7, and number 6 are all 3 Mars products. If we go to the top 5, there's Kit Kat, which has a nice light crunch, Hershey's Milk Chocolate Bar, Snickers, Reese's Peanut Butter Cup is number 2, and then M&M's is number 1. So if you look at the top 3 products, M&M's, Reese's, and Snickers, all 3 of those products have a Georgia component. All 3 of those products source their peanuts from the state of Georgia. So Georgia is a very important state for the sourcing of raw materials to make those 3 very popular confections. So the story here that I wanted to leave you with is that Mr. Mars did pretty well. He started back in the 1920s buying chocolate from Mr. Hershey and filling the chocolate with caramel and nougat. And you can see now today on the top 3 products, 2 of them are his. All right, what I want to do now is introduce you to Lauren Hatcher. She's going to take you through the next part of the presentation, and she's going to focus on the University of Georgia Flavor of Georgia contest. All right, so here's Lauren. They turn off at 6.
Okay. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Hatcher. I'm the program manager here at FoodPIC. I've been here for over 3 years now. Started here right after our new facility opened. So I will tell you a little bit about the Flavor of Georgia contest. I have been a judge for this contest for the past 3 years. So that's been exciting, but we've also had a lot of clients who have come through the FoodPIC program who have also been finalists and been a part of the contest as well. So like Dr. Keeley mentioned earlier, it's kind of that 3rd step. We really try to promote our clients who have finished products to submit their products into this contest, if anything, just for the publicity and the marketing around the contest itself. So I'm going to give you a few examples. In 2018, this is our FoodPIC team. Some of us, Dr. Keeley's here on the left side, I'm here on the right. And then in the middle, we have a client we've worked with the hibiscus products. Now they have a range of products that we've helped them with, teas, jams, jellies. They have a really, really nice product, or all of them are really nice, but they submitted, which one was it? I don't remember. It was one of the jams, yeah, and right, yeah. And so they submitted a jam this in 2018. They were a finalist, but they did not win in their category. But like I said, they have a long product line, and so we have a favorite. They have a hibiscus chutney that we think is awesome, and hopefully one day we'll see it in this contest, you know, in the future. So that was pretty exciting. Also in 2018, this was a winner in the dairy category at the Flavor of Georgia contest. This is Rock House Creamery chocolate milk. This product was developed here at FoodPIC. We actually had some high school students that were helping with formulations for our client. Keith Kelly, I think he's the owner of Rock House Creamery, and he had some ideas for really flavorful milks, and so they put together a few different formulas, submitted it to him, and he decided on this chocolate milk. It's really rich, dessert-like, and was a winner in this category that year. So it went all the way. In 2019, we had another winner in the honey category, and that was Classic City Bee Company cold smoked honey. And actually on the next slide, I'll show you real quick. Right here to the right is the example of their package and the honey itself. Let me go back. So this product was actually developed here by me, and some of our staff helped put the equipment together. And the client came to FoodPIC with the idea. They said, we want to do a cold smoked honey. We already have this honey business. We've tried some trials at home, and we just can't get it right. You know, we cannot figure this out. We can't figure out the process to do this on a larger scale. And so we signed a project with them. We started developing a process and testing their honey in a smoke environment. So since the process didn't it didn't exist beforehand. We had to create it on our own. And so that is what you see here on the slide. In the center here is a smoking cabinet. It's actually formerly a incubator. And so we drilled a hole through the side of it, and we've got a cold smoke generator there on the side, funneling cold smoke into the cabinet. And then we just started running trials, you know, like how do we get this smoke infused flavor into the honey product? And we ended up with this chocolate fountain. We did not have chocolate in it. Instead, we replaced the chocolate with honey, and we ran the honey inside of the cabinet in the smoke, and it was able to take on the smoke flavor much more efficiently. So we went from having to smoke the honey for 90 minutes in order to get a good smoke flavor to smoking it in 10, 20 minutes to get the flavor that they wanted. So that's just an example of how we developed something that would work for them more efficiently, that they could take and make their own in their own facility. And that's also a picture of just the type of smoke or the pellets that we use in order to smoke the product. They didn't want to just add a smoke flavor, they wanted to actually be smoking the product itself. And I don't know if these are going to play. These are actually videos, which I think just explains this a lot better and the process and how we got to it. On the left, nope. I don't think I'm going to be able to play it because I don't see the play button. Okay, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to see it, but on the left, it was just a video of the honey running through the fountain. And so that's what it looked like inside of the cabinet. And then in the center, it was the incubator filled with the smoke. I mean, very much filled with the smoke while the honey was running inside. And then you can see their Flavor of Georgia winner, and that's their final product. So I'd be on the lookout for it. I know they're out of Athens, so if you're ever over there, you should definitely try and pick it up. So another group that we try to recommend our clients get involved with is Georgia Grown. You know, Dr. Keeley talked about the work we do trying to develop and promote Georgia commodities, Georgia grown products. And this is an example of a product we use Georgia grown or Georgia sourced products to make a Georgia grown product that we then brought to the Georgia Grown Symposium in Macon, and we sampled out to some sessions for some feedback. And so here you can see that we included Georgia peanuts, blueberries, peaches, and pecans. To the right, there's the picture of what the bar itself looks like. Oh, I'm sorry, and this was a granola bar or a trail mix bar. And we broke it, we cut it up into small little bite-sized pieces. We packed them in these little, Ziploc bags, and we passed them out that way. And then we also distributed a survey in order to get some feedback on the flavor and how the consumer liked it. We also put together this nutrition panel. So you can see just some of the nutrition information here and what some of the ingredients are, and of course some of the allergens. So a little bit of kind of a complete picture of a almost finished product and the potential for having a full Georgia grown trail mix product on the market in Georgia. So here is a slide that talks about some of the recent FoodPIC products we've worked with. The Georgia Grown bars, that's a Georgia Grown product. The other highlighted products were for the Flavor of Georgia finalists. But you can see we have worked on a lot of different products. Some dairy, so we've got cheeses, yogurt, kefir, different milks. most recently, some cookies for sickle cell patients. That was actually a project that's ongoing, but part of what we do here is help with clinical feeding studies. So we're helping develop products in order for them to use in clinical feeding studies. And so one of those is for these sickle cell patients, and hopefully that project will get started here soon, but you know, because of everything right now, I think it's been a little bit postponed. But before this project, we also worked on a project that was out of Athens, where it was a clinical feeding study testing high protein products on adolescents. And so we've basically been involved in a project like that for the past 4 years at least. And so something else that we like to promote about at least our campus and our center here at UGA is we're pretty unique compared to the other centers like us in the US. And that's because we are a one-stop shop. So you have the FoodPIC Center. We just talked about all the services that we have as far as product development and piecing that product together in order to go to the market. But we also, next to us, have a sensory evaluation and consumer lab. And if this company wanted to really understand their consumer, their product and their consumer, and get some research in that regard, we could recommend them to this lab. It's literally right next door to us. They've got booths, and so they can do consumer testing. I think they have at least 20 booths, so they can run 20 participants at a time. They can do descriptive panels. There's a lot of sensory work that can be done right next to us. And then right next to them is the Center for Food Safety. So if there's any kind of food safety concern or any kind of questions, that they're also there, and we have that expertise in our back pocket. So that's kind of the trifecta that we have right here on our campus. And there's no one else in the US that has all three of those. So it's very unique, and it's all right here on the Griffin campus. So some of the services that we provide, we have talked a little bit about some of these, but like sensory evaluation, for us at FoodPIC, most of that's going to be informal or preliminary type feedback. Some of that is involved in our shelf life studies, but if they really want some formal sensory information, then we would refer them to our consumer and sensory lab. We do shelf life studies, and this is important because a lot of the large retailers are going to want to know what the shelf life is on a product. So so we can do those. What we do is we request so many packages of the product, so many units. We test them at whatever storage temperature it would be at, and we do pulls over intervals over time, and we test them for sensory, micro, pH, just depends on the product, and we watch it until it dies, basically. So at the end of the study, we're able to put that into a report, send it to our client, then they can give that report to the retailer so that they have that information on the product they're selling on their shelf. Nutrition facts panels, we do a lot of these. It's required by law, but like Allison stated earlier, there are exemptions for that, and it comes down to how many units you sell, annually, and your sales. I don't know off the top of my head what that cutoff is, but we go ahead and recommend it to all of our clients. Most likely the retailer is going to want to see it, and the consumer is also going to want to see it. So and for us, we charge $150 to generate a nutrition facts label for one product. So for $150, you can go ahead and just have it on your package and check that box. Competitive environment. So some clients we talk with, they don't understand how to compete with the products that are already out there. So we can help them kind of analyze, you know, the other competitive products and what they're doing in order to have their products on the shelf, and kind of teach them those types of things. You know, one that comes to mind was, we were talking about a mac and cheese recently, I think, and the client wasn't sure how to package it, wasn't sure, you know, even what storage temperature to put it at, but she had in mind another competitor's product, and you know, she said, this is the product that I want. And we said, well, then these are the things that they are doing, and so if this is what you want, then you need to do what they're doing as far as packaging and things like that. And those are things we can kind of help a client understand as around a product. Processing requirements. So sometimes, you know, thermal treatment, if you're going to pasteurize a product, there's times and temperatures that you have to meet for specific products, juice in particular. So we can help clients understand those technical requirements, particle size reduction, packaging requirements. So the packaging is there to, you know, to protect your product. Does it need to be plastic? Does it need to be, you know, glass? Does it need to be clear? Does it need to be opaque? Does it need a tamper evident seal? Those types of things we can kind of help them decide on. And then value of other byproducts. So this would be some, maybe more in like the research, product development, but they've got some byproduct of another product they're using, say pomegranate, and they're juicing it, and they've got, you know, all this hummus left over. You know, what can we do with this besides throwing it away? Like, how can we make this into another product that we can sell? Sorry, did I ramble? So that's all we have today. I hope, you know, well, does anybody have any questions, I guess?
So we have one in the chat box. So if a business needs to have their product classified, nutrition facts, shelf life tests, etc., should a business reach out to you through their local extension agent, or should they come straight to y'all? So is there a certain order or hierarchy, I guess, they should go through?
No. I mean, either one works fine. You can come to either Dr. Keeley or I, and we can get back to you about that. Yeah, it does not matter at all. But the extension agents, I know we've been pretty involved with letting them know about, you know, we're here and the services that we have. So even if they get in touch with them, they should be able to send them to us in the right direction.
I've got two quick questions. One has to do with Flavor of Georgia. So does Flavor of Georgia have a category for teas, like dried, like blends for like tea or coffee or something like that? Because I have a few tea clients that want or were looking into the Flavor of Georgia, but they didn't know if that's something they could do. They have hibiscus, like you had mentioned. They were doing like a hibiscus tea blend kind of thing.
Yeah, so I don't know about a specific category that comes to mind, but I do know that they've had finalists who had tea products. So I want to say yes, they can, but they do have a miscellaneous category. So if anything, they would be able to submit into that category. I know last year there was 11 categories, so I can't think of all of them off the top of my head, but usually any product can be fit into any space. But I do know for a fact there have been tea clients in the past, so it's very likely they can get in.
Okay, I'll definitely pass that along to them. The other question I had to do with the starting a food business class. I know Dr. Keeley had mentioned it when he was speaking. I was just curious, this year, will it still be an in-person event, or will y'all try to, or is there talk about transitioning to online, since we're all kind of transitioning to online good ways?
No, that's a really good question. I don't really have an answer. I don't know if, yeah, I don't think we've seen anything yet on that. My assumption would be for now, they're probably planning for it to be in person at least.
Okay.
Yeah, usually it's an in-person workshop, but I think because of where we're at now, it'll probably be moved to in-person, which they're probably like fully capable of doing that. So
Okay.
when we do have some information though, we can let you know as soon as we get that.
Yeah, I was gonna say if I know y'all do a lot with us, extension agents. So if y'all want to pass that on to our extension listserv whenever y'all do have it, advertise it. That'd be great to give out to our clients. I know for a fact there'd be a good bit of people that'd be willing to go and participate. That's all the questions I really had, and I don't see any more in the chat. I do think if y'all have the link to y'all's little virtual tour of your facility, please send that on the extension listserv, because I got to tour it. It was awesome. I think a lot of people would really enjoy it. I know Dr. Kurt was saying that guys really enjoy it, and they're like, wow, cool, you know, and I will contest that that is true. I was like, that's pretty cool stuff. So if you
I think it's fun too. Yeah.
it's some cool stuff. So.
We should have that done pretty soon. We're just adding some finishing touches. So it's kind of new for us to try and do that. So we're trying to make it, you know, as easy for everybody to understand. So hopefully soon, and I'll send it to you for sure.
Awesome.
We should have it up on our website too.
That's awesome. I appreciate y'all for speaking. Y'all did a great job. If anyone else has specific questions, and like I said, not all of the registrants are here tonight, so if they have any other ones, I will definitely direct them to y'all's contact on y'all's email. So, but I appreciate y'all speaking.
Thank you. I'll
great job.
stop sharing now.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind turning that back over to me for just a second. Awesome, thank you. So to close us out, Miss Beth, we're going to shift gears to you. She is going to be telling us about Georgia Grown. So I will go ahead and give you the reins and let you close us out.
Okay.
There you go.
Can you see it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Well, hello, everyone. I am Beth Meeks with the Georgia Grown Program with the Georgia Department of Agriculture. Back in 2011, when Commissioner Black was elected, he wanted to redo the Georgia Grown Program, and that's when we got a new Georgia Grown logo. And since then, it's just gone everywhere. Everybody all over the United States is recognizing this logo. But the purpose of the Georgia Grown logo, the Georgia Grown Program, is an economic and community development platform designed to grow local economies throughout our state. And these goals are economic development, nutrition and wellness, and environmental, and One Georgia. And that wants to gap between the rural and urban Georgia so they can be bridged together through agriculture. Let's see. The annual membership is $100 to $2,500, and this gives you the use of the logo to use on any of your packaging or your marketing materials. And you're being listed in some of our highly searchable statewide directory designed to connect your company with buyers and consumers. The ability to attend some of our unique networking events and trade shows, which includes the symposium we have once a year. We have the Georgia Grown building at the Perry Fair, which we also have a store, a Georgia Grown store in there where our Georgia Grown members can sell their products. Last year, they exceeded the goal and reached $100,000 in sales just through those 14 days of the fair. And then, of course, we have the expo, and we have started opening up another building over at the expo. It's the family building. And a lot of our Georgia Grown members were in there last year. We had cooking demonstrations, different chefs came and used different Georgia Grown products, and that was very successful, and they're looking at it even getting larger this year. All the membership funds stay within the program. They do not go anywhere else, so this gives us an advantage to help sponsor different events, like the Shrimp and Grits Festival is one of our large festivals that we do, and we have like 50 members that go and participate in this, and they always sell out of their Georgia Grown products. We have over 1,000 companies that have contributed to the program since starting in 2012. And in Lowndes County, the 2017 total farm gate grower value is $70 million, and over $10 million of that is in pecan production. 12.47 million production of bell peppers, second largest county production behind Eccles County. How many of y'all know where Eccles County is? Okay. 3.5 million in cucumber production on over 330 acres. And then we have the specialty foods, which several of y'all have talked about that, and it's a supportive range of specialty food producers from cottage food to national brand producers, and they host dozens of exclusive Georgia Grown events throughout Georgia and work with retailers to help open markets both locally and globally. These are just a few of our Georgia Grown members. Georgia Olive Farms, the Hardy Farms Peanuts, the Regenerate Blueberry Juice, which is an all-natural blueberry juice. If you haven't tried it, it's really good. Strickland's Proper Pepper, which is a very good pimento cheese. And then we have Oliver Farms, who has pecan oil. He has a sunflower infused oil, and he's continuously adding to his oils. And then, of course, Calhoun Produce is one of our agritourism places. And then Wisham's Jelly is a pepper jelly. We have, of course, forestry. In 2016, the forestry industry in Georgia employed over 51,900 workers and generated a total revenue of nearly $20.8 billion for the state. And they partner to improve education regarding the forestry industry. And they work to identify forestry products made in Georgia. The Langdale Company here in Valdosta was the first timber lumber company to sign up for Georgia Grown back in 2012. And they now put the Georgia Grown logo on these poles that they sell to, like Georgia Power, Cockwood Electric. And the commissioner got with them where they would turn the logo so people could actually see it when they got close enough to see it in different areas. Okay, poultry and livestock, that includes the beef, cattle, and eggs, poultry and equine dairy. And we have 5.3 billion poultry and eggs make up Georgia's largest farm gate value category. And several of the major poultry producers utilize that Georgia Grown logo. Some of our Georgia Grown team in Atlanta has been working with Kroger and to source all the milk sold in Georgia from the Georgia dairies. And they're also preparing a campaign to promote Georgia Grown beef in Georgia restaurants throughout the state. In 2016, the farm gate value for fruits and vegetables was $1.88 billion, and it launched Nature's Favorite State. And that campaign, the campaign to promote Georgia Grown produce in regions outside of Georgia. It promoted a range of Georgia Grown produce on television, digital, and in social media in 17 and 18. And we have the horticulture, which is an ornamental horticulture has a $843 million farm gate value in the state, and they're preparing to be local and be safe. Campaign to promote the sourcing of the plants from local nurseries and to start a pollinator-friendly gardens. And that's something else the commissioner has really gotten into, is the pollinator gardens. And Blake, I don't know if y'all do it in your area, and Mr. Carter, I don't know if y'all do it in Ware County, but I know over in Lowndes County and Brooks County, they have started going to the schools and helping the students set up pollinating gardens, so these children are learning what the pollinator plants do and how they relate to your food.
Yes, ma'am. I know we personally do a lot with our Keep Liberty Beautiful, so our county beautification group, and they promote these pollinator gardens in the local school systems. So I know our office works really closely, and we do the pollinator census every year. So that's a big push that we've been having in our county.
It is. That's good. Then we have agritourism. Oh, wait a minute. Agritourism is 130. We have over 130 agritourism signage locations throughout the state of Georgia, and they have digital promotions for corn mazes, full harvest, UPIC, and Christmas trees, and they're sponsored by 5 Georgia-grown trails throughout the state. And they are, at this time, we are preparing to update our Georgia-grown agritourism guide brochure. And most of these are put out at the different welcome centers, and people really enjoy getting to see these, because no matter where they're going in the state, it seems like one of these trails is either running north and south or east and west. A lot of business services, they collaborate with numerous companies that provide products and services to the Georgia agriculture industry. And many of our business services members provide discounts to Georgia-grown members. The equipment and manufacturers in Georgia are especially proud of the Georgia-grown status. And we have markets. We work to open new markets for Georgia-grown products. And we have more restaurants, grocery stores. Publix has come on with serving and buying our Georgia-grown products. Convenience stores have started selling some pecans, I know that. And then schools have started buying regenerate blueberry juice and some other products to serve on the meals for the children. And we have different farmers markets that aren't your typical farmers market that you used to see, that are opening up in different areas of the state and towns. Especially in Atlanta, you have several different ones all throughout the city of Atlanta. And they were breaking a new ground for our farm to school program, and the 2020 vision is a trend master in school nutrition programs, and we have pretty much reached that. And most of the schools are serving 20% of Georgia-grown products in their schools for lunch. Our Georgia-grown chef program will be invited to the James Beard House in New York City for the 4th time, and that was it was the 5th time in 2019, but they weren't able to go this year because of the COVID. When they do go to the Beard House, the James Beard House in New York, they always carry everything Georgia grown, and farmers always, what farmers donate, they usually take them with them up to the Beard House. So that, and as it was said earlier, the new crop industry promotion is blueberries, olives, citrus, and agritourism. This is a 5th Day Farm. This is one of our agritourism places in Valdosta. They do birthday parties. They have goat yoga. They have just you name it, they've got it, and any kind of animal they have down there. So And then here's our Satsumas. King Corbett Farms put in the second line to package these Satsumas, and they are called the Besties. They opened them last year, was their first year, and they really did well in Publix and Walmart. And like we said before, that we've got more Satsumas that are being planted here in Georgia. And that's all. If anybody has any questions, just feel free to ask me.
Thank you, Miss Beth. That was great. I know a lot of people ask me all the time, how do I get, signed up to be in Georgia Grown, or do I qualify? And I think getting this out to everybody in their hands, knowing if they qualify, which they will, is a good thing. Because, I used to work for Peach State Pride, which used to advertise that they were a Georgia Grown partner or member as a business.
Right.
They would be. So I always really loved that. So I really enjoy seeing how broad Georgia Grown has gotten. I guess the question is, one question I had in mind, is there any way, or y'all have any plans to do like an app for your phone going forward, maybe for you to be able to, like, say I wanted to find a Georgia Grown UPIC vendor and I could just pull it up. Somebody had asked me that because there's an app on your phone called Crop Swap, is somebody told me about, and a lot of local smaller growers are using it. But they were asking me that, and I said, I don't know, but I'll definitely, ask about it.
I will definitely ask them. I'm sure it's something they can do. We're always open for suggestions.
I definitely get that. I've been asked that from a few people, just because you can do a lot of marketing and whatnot, but having an app these days seems like it's a good benefit to have.
That's right. You're not keeping up with paperwork or a book.
Exactly. Everybody wants that app these days, so everybody wants ease of access. So I was just curious.
But if anybody's interested in signing up for Georgia Grown, it's just if they would just visit our website, www.georgiagrown.com, and it's self-explanatory how you sign up. But if they have any problems, they can call me, because like anything else, we've just gotten a new website, our website redone, and there's been some little glitches in there of people trying to sign up or renew their membership. So we have a wonderful IT department that helps get it straight right off. So
awesome. I don't see any more questions in the chat box, but I know if I get any more questions or anything like that, I'll definitely shoot them your way, or I'll get in contact with you. I don't know do you have any, I know me and you talked earlier, if we could get a hold of those pamphlets after I get off the call with you, I might get with you to get a shipment of maybe some Georgia Grown pamphlets or something like that, to be able to hand out, or something, some informative like paper I can keep in my office. I don't know if other agents might like that too, but
I know we have, yes, I can see about that, but I know we have a lot of Georgia Grown, the Georgia Grown magazine that comes out once a year, because normally we pass the majority of them out through the spring, but since COVID came along and we haven't been on the road, we have a lot of those, which is a lot of people enjoy looking at.
Yeah, that would be great too. Anything like that. I know a lot of my clients that come into my office, they might not have gotten word that we have a workshop or something like that. Maybe they're not on a social media or anything, but when they come in, they do enjoy to take some stuff to read home with them. So I'll definitely get with you on that. But I appreciate you, Miss Beth. This was great. I know everybody's that couldn't be here tonight, when they watch this and see y'all's PowerPoints, all the speakers, they're going to really find some really great information. So it's a real building block from last week. I think Dr. Kirk said it best when he said, y'all have got your marketing and your sales. Now let's go to the next step, in your licensing and your product and your promotion. And each part of this tonight, I feel like will help a business, once they get off the ground, really grow even further. So I thank all of y'all, Allison, Miss Beth, Dr. Kurt, Lauren. We really appreciate it. That is going to do it for tonight's presenters. If y'all have any other questions, the ones that are still on the call, please, if you can email me or anything afterwards, I'd love to, I can try to get anything for you. I'll hopefully have this PDF sent out to you by Friday, the PDFs of all the presentations. And we'll be here same time next week to go it again. So thank y'all. Miss Beth, if you'd hand me back over host, I'll close us out.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Let's see, you're gonna have to walk me through on this.
Go over there to the, go to stop sharing your screen.
The where now?
The stop share button.
Okay.
And then you're going to click participants.
Okay.
And then go over to my name, and it should move that cursor over to the right, and it should be right there where you can make me the host.
Did it do it?
Not yet.
Here you go. Wait a minute. I think that got it.
Yes, ma'am. I got it. Thank y'all. I appreciate
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, no problem. Thank y'all.
Good to meet y'all. Blake, my computer died halfway through, so it messed up my recording. So I got about half of it.
That's okay, Scout. I got you. I understand. You're down there in Ware County. Not all the technology works the best.
Yeah, we struggle sometimes.
Well, I got it, so we should be good. And I think Laura's got it too.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
All right.
All right, Blake, I'll see you next week.
All right.